Shocking images reveal the brutal reality of slavery, moments frozen in time that expose cruelty, pain, and resilience. These disturbing photos from history take us deep into the horrors of slavery. Each image tells a chilling story, showing the inhumanity people endured and the haunting legacy left behind. 1. The Klan's gift. And here's where the hypocrisy hits hardest. A chilling photo shows the Ku Klux Klan presenting a radio to Jack and Josie Riddle, elderly former slaves. What looks like generosity is pure cruelty. The same group built on terror and blood, trying to pose as kind benefactors. It's irony wrapped in hate. 2. The Children of New Orleans. This part blew my mind. In 1863, photos emerged of enslaved children with skin so light they could easily pass for white. The images exposed the absurdity of America's one-drop rule. They stirred public outrage and sympathy, helping push support for emancipation and schools for freed kids. 3. The Bell Rack. Just when you think it can't get darker, Alabama's Bell Rack shows up. A torture device designed to keep runaways exposed and humiliated. A metal frame with a bell on top, impossible to escape. It wasn't just punishment, it was humiliation on full display, making freedom feel like a hopeless dream. 4. A Slave and a Child. This image looks tender at first glance. A woman holding a child in Brazil. But here's the twist. The child was her master's. Slaves often raised white children, gave them love, only to have that love twisted by a system that taught those kids their caregivers were nothing but property. 5. Gunpoint intimidation. This photo will make your blood boil. A sheriff and bailiff point their guns at a black woman, like it's routine. No crime, no trial, just intimidation as law. It captures how violence against African Americans was normalized, baked into authority, even after slavery ended. 6th. Aboriginal prisoners 1902. Across the world, the same nightmare repeated. In Australia, photos show Aboriginal prisoners shackled in chains. 1902. The image mirrors what happened in the American South. Colonial powers stripping people of freedom, crushing culture, and enforcing order through dehumanization. It's slavery in another uniform. 7. Whipped in 1889. Here's the part they don't teach you in school. In 1889, a photo caught an African-American prisoner being whipped. Slavery had been abolished, but prison labor took its place. They called it justice. In reality, it was legal slavery, fueled by vagrancy laws that targeted freed black men. 8. Renty's portrait. This one will haunt you. In 1850, Harvard professor Louis Agassiz photographed Renty, an enslaved man, to push racist science. These images weren't meant to honor him, but to prove false ideas about race. That pseudoscience laid the foundation for segregation and even influenced Nazi racial theory decades later. 9. Andrew and Silas Chandler. This part feels complicated. A photo shows Confederate soldier Andrew Chandler with his slave, Silas, during the Civil War. Silas would later save Andrew's life in battle. After freedom, Silas got land of his own. It's a story trapped between loyalty, survival, and a system that never gave him a real choice. 10. The Branded Hand. And here's one of the most haunting images of all. Jonathan Walker, a white abolitionist, was branded S on his palm, slave stealer, after helping slaves escape in 1844. That brand burned into flesh became a symbol of resistance. Instead of silencing him, it turned him into a living banner for the abolitionist cause. 11. Zanzibar slave boy, 1890. This one is gut-wrenching. A photo shows a young boy punished in Zanzibar's slave trade around 1890. Children were beaten, chained, and sold like animals. The Indian Ocean slave market thrived until 1897, long after many countries had abolished slavery. Childhood stolen, humanity erased. 12. Contraband child with Union soldier. This image hits different. A Union soldier sits with a child once labeled contraband, property of war. The photo captures tenderness in a brutal time, showing how freed children found unlikely protectors among Union troops. It humanized the fight against slavery in a single snapshot. 13. The British sailor in Oman, 1907. Here's a twist of hope. In 1907, a British sailor was photographed freeing a Swahili slave in Oman. The Royal Navy spent decades chasing slavers across oceans, breaking open dhows, and cutting chains. This picture freezes the moment freedom became real for one man. 14. Madam C.J. Walker's triumph, and then light breaking through. Madam C.J. Walker, daughter of former slaves, built an empire in hair care and became the first self-made female millionaire in America. Her portrait isn't just wealth, it's defiance. Proof that resilience could rise from the ashes of slavery. 15. Survivors of the slave ship. But the darkest reminder lingers. Survivors crammed into the belly of a slave ship, barely alive, bones pressing against skin. The Middle Passage claimed millions. Starvation, disease, and suffocation. Those who survived carried scars deeper than flesh. A photo like this drags you into that horror. 16. Brazil, 1865. This image shocks me because it's so late in history. A Brazilian man sits, carried high on a chair by enslaved men in 1865. Brazil clung to slavery longer than anywhere else in the Americas, only abolishing it in 1888. The arrogance in this picture says it all. 17. Runaway poster, 1838. Another disturbing relic, a Kentucky poster from 1838 offering rewards for runaway slaves. It lists names, scars, and even mannerisms, like lost livestock. These notices reveal how enslaved people were cataloged as property, their humanity stripped away, reduced to a dollar value and a physical description. 18. Lucy Higgs Nichols. Not every image is a tragedy. Lucy Higgs Nichols, a former slave, served as a nurse during the Civil War. Her dedication earned her honorary membership in the Grand Army of the Republic, a rare honor for a black woman in an era still chained by segregation. 19. World's Fair Pygmy Exhibit, 1904. And then comes one of the most degrading spectacles. At the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904, African men, women, and children were displayed in a pygmy village as curiosities. Crowds gawked at them like animals in a zoo. A cruel reminder that dehumanization didn't end with emancipation. 20. Captured slave trader, 1907. Finally, one photograph flips the script. In 1907, the Royal Navy captured an Arab slave trader on the Indian Ocean route. Shackled and defeated, the slaver himself faced justice. The image symbolized a global shift, the world slowly, painfully, beginning to crush a trade that had thrived for centuries. 21st. Gordon's scourged back, 1863. This photograph stopped the world. Gordon, an escaped slave, revealed his back shredded with whip scars. Published in 1863, it became abolition's rallying image, proof that slavery wasn't just labor, it was relentless torture carved into human flesh. 22. Rebecca Felton, 1922. Here's the bitter irony. Rebecca Felton, the last slaveholder to sit in the US Senate, took her seat in 1922. She openly defended white supremacy and even encouraged violence against black men. Progress met with a haunting echo of the past. 23. Branded and collared. One image is almost unbearable. A man with a metal collar fastened around his neck, spikes and rings for chains. Branding and collars weren't just control, they were symbols of total ownership, meant to break spirits and display dominance in the most dehumanizing way possible. 24th US Colored Infantry, 1863. But here's the twist: courage breaking through. In 1863, photographs captured the US Colored Infantry, black men who took up arms for the Union after the Emancipation Proclamation. Fighting not just for the country's survival, but for their very humanity. They rewrote what freedom meant. 25. Florida's convict lease teens. This one cuts deep. Teenagers in Florida were photographed under the convict lease system. Vagrancy laws criminalized freedom, sending young black boys into brutal labor camps. It wasn't slavery by name anymore, but in practice it was slavery reborn, legal and profitable. 26. Winn Willis, 1939. And then there's Winn Willis, living history in flesh. A former slave, he lived to 116 years and was photographed in 1939, still clutching the work horn once used to control his labor. He spanned the full arc, from chains to a freedom he barely recognized. 27. Anastasia's Iron Mask. Brazil's story is scarred too. Anastasia, an enslaved woman, was forced to wear an iron mask that locked over her face. The device silenced her, made eating unbearable, and symbolized rebellion crushed. Her suffering turned her into a symbol of endurance and sainthood in Brazil. Yet Anastasia's silence became louder than words. The very mask meant to erase her humanity transformed her into a legend of resilience. To the oppressed, she was more than a victim. She was a saintly figure, embodying the spirit that slavery could not extinguish. Her story shows how even cruelty forged symbols of unbreakable strength. 28. Cotton fields in the South. A familiar yet brutal sight. Slaves bent over endless cotton fields under overseers' whips. Cotton was the white gold of the South, driving the economy while bleeding out generations of enslaved people. Every tuft of cotton came with a price paid in human suffering. 29. Sumatra tobacco workers, 1897. Half a world away, in the Dutch East Indies, another photograph shows enslaved workers in Sumatra's tobacco fields, 1897. Conditions were brutal, long hours, unbearable heat, and ruthless overseers. Colonial powers weren't just farming crops, they were farming human lives. 30. Omar ibn Said. And here's a haunting contradiction. Omar ibn Said, a highly educated Islamic scholar, was enslaved in America for 50 years. His writings in Arabic survive, pleading for freedom, blending faith with captivity. His story shows slavery didn't just steal bodies, it tried to cage brilliant minds. But even in chains, Omar's intellect refused to vanish. His manuscripts carried echoes of resistance, quietly preserving his identity against a system designed to erase it. They remind us that slavery wasn't just physical, it was a war on memory, culture, and dignity. Every page he wrote was an act of survival, proving that knowledge could outlive oppression. These haunting photographs don't just document the past, they force us to confront humanity's darkest side. Behind every scar, shackle, and silent stare lies a story that demands remembrance. If this moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that history should never let us forget.